What if the whole point of environmental education wasn't just to make kids aware of problems, but to actually raise a new generation of problem solvers? Today, we're going to explore a really powerful shift, one that takes students from being passive spectators and puts them right on the front lines of environmental action. The challenges our planet is up against are complex and they're urgent. So the big question is, how do we get the next generation ready for all of this? It's not just about feeding them information. It's about equipping them with the skills and, just as importantly, the mindset to actively build a better future. So let's explore how we can actually do that. First up, we need to understand the fundamental shift in thinking that's required here. It really means moving away from that traditional one-way lecture model and towards something that's way more dynamic and participatory. Just take a look at the difference. The traditional model, on the left, it's all about information transfer. Teacher talks, student listens. Simple. But the challenges we face today demand the model on the right. Students who actually take ownership, who develop real problem-solving skills, and who learn how to implement real-world projects. The objective is completely different now. So the ultimate goal here? It goes way beyond simple awareness. We're talking about creating a generation of doers, people who can analyze the problem, design a concrete solution, and then actually lead the change out in the real world. Okay, so if that's the goal, how do we get there? Well, the answer lies in a really powerful educational philosophy. Let's get into the core concept: active learning. So put it simply, active learning puts the student right in the driver's seat. Instead of being an empty vessel just waiting to be filled with facts, the student becomes the architect of their own understanding. They're not just passively receiving information, they're actively building it. And this isn't some new fad. The roots of active learning go way back to educational pioneers like Maria Montessori and John Dewey, both of whom really championed this idea of learning by doing. In this model, the teacher's role shifts from a lecturer to more of a guide. The classroom becomes a hub for debates and for real problem-solving activities. And most importantly, the research shows that this approach has a deep and proven impact on raising environmental consciousness. So how do we bring active learning to life in the classroom, especially for something like environmental education? Well, one of the most effective tools is the use of what are called problem-based scenarios. The process is actually pretty simple and structured. First, you present a realistic environmental problem. Second, students work together in groups to analyze it. Third, each group develops creative but also feasible solutions. And finally, they present their ideas to everyone for feedback and discussion. It's this powerful cycle of inquiry, creation, and refinement. Let's make this really concrete. Imagine presenting this exact scenario to a class. It's not some abstract concept. It's an immediate, local problem with really clear stakeholders. All of a sudden, students aren't just learning about recycling, they're tasked with creating an actual plan to improve their own community. That is what turns learning into action. This all sounds great in theory, right? But what does the evidence say? Let's take a look at the data, from some solid academic research to an inspiring real-world success story. A very recent and thorough study from Gazi University in 2024 gives us some powerful findings. Researchers worked with 7th graders to measure exactly how effective this problem-based method really is. And here is the headline number. The students who learned using these problem-based scenarios showed a statistically significant 34% increase in their biodiversity awareness. That's not a small improvement. That is a giant leap in understanding. And it goes much deeper than just that one number. These students developed a far richer understanding of how ecosystems actually work. Their ability to generate solutions for environmental issues increased dramatically. They learned to think from multiple perspectives. And, this is crucial, they remembered what they learned for much longer than students in a traditional classroom setting. So let's move from the research lab into the real world. The energy-friendly blue-green school project, which was implemented in hundreds of schools across Turkey, is a perfect example of this whole approach in action. Look at these results. By empowering the students to lead the campaigns, schools saw a 25% reduction in energy consumption and a staggering 60% increase in their recycling rates. These aren't just test scores. This is a tangible, measurable, positive impact on the environment, and it was driven by the students themselves. This quote from one of the school principals who was involved in the project, it really says it all. When you give students the authority and the responsibility, they don't just meet expectations. They often shatter them in ways you couldn't have imagined. It just unleashes their potential. Ultimately, this is about so much more than just a single project or a single lesson. It's about a long-term vision. It's about cultivating the next generation of environmental leaders. So why is this method so effective at creating leaders? Because it develops the very skills that leadership demands. Students don't just memorize information, they learn how to apply it. They develop empathy and a true sense of responsibility. They sharpen their critical thinking skills, and they master the art of collaboration and communication, all essential skills for solving any complex problem. This really sums up the ultimate takeaway. We are moving beyond just teaching students to identify problems. We're preparing them to be the innovators and the responsible citizens who have the confidence and the capability to initiate real, lasting social change. So, this isn't the end of the conversation. It's really the beginning. What about you? What have your experiences been? What successes and what challenges have you seen in this area? Share your stories down in the comments. By learning from each other, we can all get better at empowering the environmental leaders of tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.